Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Garb August, the very worst BookTube event of them all, proudly so, created by Ollie at Criminali last year, and designed to celebrate garbage, designed to celebrate the reading of trash. And for the month of August, this year, he has assembled twice the number of dregs of the internet channels in order to be his co-host. I am one of those channels where we read garbage all throughout the month of August and love it. Or at least we try to. I had a bit of a bump in my Garb August journey just recently when I read an indie book, a YA dystopian zombie novel that was good. It was good. It was free. It was one of those daily aggregator ebook deal sites that I now love, like Book Gorilla or BookBub or Read Romances or whatever it is. I now subscribe to a whole bunch of those things. I wish I could find a dozen more to subscribe to. I get their daily offerings. You give them your email, you get a daily offering of the roundup of deals that are out there that change all the time. And in almost every one of those emails, almost every time, there's at least one book that's free. So I always get that. It's one click. You just send it. I send it straight to the Kindle app on my iPad. And I have been reading a lot of those. I'm a big fan of indie books. And my heart goes out to the fact that they find it almost impossible to get the word out about their books. That's the number one challenge for an indie author. So I read one of those, and I guess I went into it kind of laughing, kind of thinking, well, maybe, in fact, I was guilty of a lot of the prejudices that I like to chide people for. The book was free. Maybe I was thinking that means it's worthless. The book is an indie publisher, not mainstream, so maybe I was thinking that means it's amateurish. I know that both of those things aren't true. I know better. And maybe that was part of why I went into the book that I went into thinking, this will surely be trash. I don't know why I would think of that otherwise. If I encountered the exact same book flying under the colors of Simon & Schuster or Penguin Random House, I wouldn't have just automatically assumed it was trash. But I learned my lesson, because it wasn't trash. It wasn't thrilling at all. And before you roll your eyes and say, well, if you're expecting thrilling from every book you read, kindly don't, because that is what I'm expecting. That is exactly what I'm expecting. We have barely any time to be here. In about 10 minutes, you're going to be dead. Of course I want every book I read to be thrilling. I'm a long way off from that being reality, and so is everybody else, although you could be a lot closer to that reality if you would let me pick your books. Simply surrender your free will. But I'm a long way off from that reality, but of course that's the standard I have. So this was just an average book, and that threw me off because I did report on it for Garb August, but it wasn't garbage. And that caused such a crisis of confidence on my part that I wanted to go back to something that I knew was garbage, something where I didn't have any doubt in the matter, where I could just wallow in the mud bath of trash. So I went to one of my favorite trash series. It's the Last Ranger series from the late 1970s, early 1980s by Craig Sargent. It's definitely men's adventure. It's about a very handsome young man named Martin Stone who was trained by, a parental paramilitary figure who's now long gone in order to survive in the post-apocalyptic wasteland that has become America, where the country has been ravaged, the infrastructure has completely fallen apart. There are cannibal gangs everywhere, mutant gangs everywhere, mutant cannibal gangs everywhere, cannibal mutant gangs everywhere, everywhere that Martin Stone turns. Once he leaves the underground family bunker, once he's out in the outside world, everywhere he turns, there are people who have tentacles growing out of their eyes, or who are, so badly burned or limbless. Mucking around with people's limbs seems to be a big fetish of the series author, who goes by the name of Craig Sargent. Everywhere that Martin Stone goes, he encounters this at every turn. and quickly in the course of the series, he gets a sidekick. He has a mission, which is to find his lovely, beautiful, innocent, pure as the driven snow sister, somewhere out there in the hellscape of the post-apocalyptic landscape. He wants to find his sister. They are both clean-limbed, well-nourished, white-teethed, absolutely gorgeous, both of them. But nobody else in the world is. Everybody else in the world is not only disfigured by, I guess, Craig Sargent's idea of radiation, I guess, but also by weird inbreeding, and there are all sorts of sadistic warlords who conduct brutal military, medical experiments, of course, without anesthesia, with victims screaming and wailing, strapped to tables, transplanting octopus limbs onto their fingers, or sewing two people back to back so that they are, this push me, pull you of a human being or whatever. Stone is forever encountering those people, but eventually, in the course of his quest to find his sister, he acquires a whole bunch of things. He acquires the standard things for post-apocalyptic men's adventure stories, which is a magic gun, because it's the post-apocalypse, but his gun never runs out of ammunition, and he can easily keep it clean. And also a magic motorcycle. He has a gigantic hog of a motorcycle that is magic because, of course, it never breaks. If any important part breaks, he can't replace it, and it never runs out of gasoline. In post-apocalyptic men's adventure novels, that is always the case. There is always magic of one kind or another. It's never called that, but that's what it is. If you're describing to me a post-apocalyptic wasteland in which ordinary rattlesnakes and toads have mutated to the size of Volkswagens, and there's burnt chaparral for the next 500 miles between you and the next Stone Age primitive human encampment that is constantly being beleaguered by ravaging cannibals, then you don't have anywhere to keep getting your tobacco. Okay? So if you keep really cool 1970s movie smoking throughout the whole book, you're a magical being. You're essentially Gandalf. And all of these books have that in one way or another. Or they would be crawling desperation for the first 20 pages, and then the hero dies along with everybody else. Instead, there's got to be magic. Now, Martin Stone's magic is a constantly firing gun and a constantly driving motorcycle. Those are his magic implements, but eventually he soon gets a magic sidekick, a pit bull, named Excalibur. You'd be hard-pressed to know that the dog's name is Excalibur, since he almost always refers to it as just dog. But Excalibur is the magic, urban panic version of a pit bull from the 1980s. Ollie from Criminale is entirely right when he says that garbage is often fueled by some current social mania. Something that some social fear that's unrealistic that someone is pushing. I'm sure that somewhere out there right now, probably already written, but at least being written, is a series of post-apocalyptic adventure stories in which the world has been destroyed and all of these mutants have been created by vaccines. I'm sure that is true. In this case, you only have to look at the literature of the time to know that at the time that these books were being written, the United States was in the grip of a wave of pit bull panic that comes and goes. I was really hoping that it would be gone completely, but then the rap industry started using these things as bling. The more savage and vicious and mindless and dangerous your pit bull is, the badder ass you are. And the rap industry makes billions of dollars a year. So the minute I saw that they were going to do that, I sort of sighed, because that is going to mean that this current wave of anti-pit bull hysteria will go on forever and ever. It'll go on for a lot longer. It'll be artificially fueled. So to the point where you will see municipal localities ban a dog breed, as if they're Lizzie Proctor and they're talking to the devil, as if they're inherently evil. They'll sort of ban these things. I don't know how to explain that. I except for bad marketing, but this was an earlier crest of the anti-pit bull hysteria, because Stone has a pit bull, naturally the baddest ass dog of them all. Not at all true. Not at all true. If you were in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, believe you me, the breed you would not want would be a pit bull. There are a whole bunch of breeds you wouldn't want, and a pit bull would be one of them. A whole bunch of breeds you might want, but that wouldn't be one of them, no matter how impressive a bite strength they have. But anyway, Excalibur learns right away to ride shotgun on Stone's magic motorcycle, and they go about their adventures for book after book after book. And they encounter some signature bad guys. Most of the bad guys that they encounter are hideously deformed. There's a general who patterns himself after General Patton, who has multiple artificial legs. Again, no infrastructure, no medical infrastructure to keep those from going septic at all. It's just his hatred does it, or the limbs go putrid, but he likes that, or whatever. There are villages full of cannibals. There are roadside agents and all kinds of things like that. And they encounter everything, and always manage to escape victorious. And Martin Stone's idea of victorious in all of these adventures is not just to beat the bad guys. It's also to get a little nookie. He's very interested. It's a high priority of his to get a little nookie in every adventure. And sure enough, no matter where he ends up, he manages to find, even in a writhing village of leprous, bubo-encrusted, semi-human monstrosities, he always manages to find a beautiful young woman. Beautiful, clean, hygienic, long flowing hair. In this, Martin Stone very much resembles Conan, the barbarian, who never manages not to be able to do that. And that's important, because Stone has his priorities. Got to keep the Harley in good shape. Got to watch out for Dog. Got to beat the bad guys with your magic machine guns and rocket launchers. But you also got to get some nookie. And these adventures just continue. A couple of bad guys return, including one particular bad guy called the Dwarf. These are, needless to say, intensely anti-PC books. The Dwarf is a particular bad guy for Stone, a complete raving lunatic, who's also at the top of an evil cartel. This future world is full of evil cartels. The bad guys in the book that we're talking about today, which is The Last Ranger number 10, Is This the End? There's the Dwarf right there. And there's Excalibur. And there's a rocket launcher with endless bandoleros of ammunition, and Stone's perfect white teeth. When this book begins, the bad guys, several of whom are returning characters, are chortling around a table. Gentlemen, too evil. It's just like that, except it doesn't know that it is. Either that, or the author, Craig Sargent, is really in on the joke and is just being incredibly po-faced about all of this. It seems to me to be too earnest for that. But nevertheless, there's an opening scene in this book that is so reminiscent of the opening of The Naked Gun. You'll just be laughing the whole time. where Frank Drebin is in disguise in a room full of the world's bad guys. Impossible not to start laughing, even now after all these years. And I guarantee you, the poor, lost, lamented David Murphy ever comes back for a visit, that is on our must-watch. We have a roller coaster of much-watched clips, and that's got to be there when he smashes Yasser Arafat to the floor, and Yasser Arafat has a sticker on his lapel saying, "Hello, my name is Yasser. Don't ever let me catch you guys in America." There's an opening scene in this book that is legitimately just like that. As these guys are fussing over their cartels. And I'm reading this scene, and this is not the first time that it occurs. By the third book in the series, you're hearing about these sort of cartels. When there's no gasoline, there are no roads, there are no cars. How on earth are you worried? How on earth? I mean, again, this is a social echo of massive drug dealers, drug wars, that sort of thing. But it isn't practical in the world that Craig Sargent is describing here. That would be the last thing on anybody's mind. If you were going to have a black market where you control people and crush your opposition, it would be for food, or more importantly, drinkable water. But instead, it's drugs and prostitution. Anyway, Stone is continuing with his quest in this book to find his virtuous sister. But this book is a direct continuation from number 9. At the end of number 9, Excalibur was severely wounded, and Stone barely escapes with his life from the bad guys at the end of that book. So you're picking up a little here. Not that it matters. This isn't exactly Turgenev. Okay. And the plot moves along, and Stone encounters one amazing obstacle after another, not all of which are mutated. Some of them are natural. He often encounters wild animals, or swollen, out-of-control rivers, or, in this case, a tornado. Our hero faces down a tornado. I want to read you. I want to read you this scene from the old Kindle here, because if you don't read this sort of thing, if you wouldn't believe me. I don't think you would fully believe me. So indulge me uh, in a bit of a read here. We'll do a bit of this. It's an interesting experience having a mile-high funnel of Megadeth coming straight at you like it wants to shake your hand off your body. One presumes, yes. So Stone stands there in front of this tornado, and it eventually sweeps him up. And even here, the author cannot avoid sexual undertones. It's like Stone wants Nookie even from a supercell. Suddenly, it was upon him, and it was as if he were in a dream. The entire bike was lifted into the air. Yes, he is revving his bike into the sky. The entire bike was lifted into the air as the sheer wall of blackness closed right over him. There was no sky, no world, no nothing except the spinning end over end, not knowing where or who he was. He could feel the sheer energy of the thing as he entered its very fabric. He could feel the moisture of the funnel, the roaring, crushing power of its 400-mile-per-hour winds, which swung him round its outer edge. And he could feel as well the sheer malevolence of the thing, like it had a consciousness and it was to destroy. That certainly sounds like a few of my honeymoons to Deb. I don't know about you. Stone suddenly knew he'd be seeing his mother and father again real soon, because they're dead. So he's going to be joining them in the afterlife. Well, that would be nice. He wondered in a strangely calm way, within the storm of his fear, just what it would be like to die. And suddenly he wished, with a burst of incredible force that surged through his body right up from the depths of his libido, that he could have got laid just one more time before he died. That's what you're thinking of when you're being swept away by 400-mile-an-hour winds of a tornado. That's what you're thinking of, absolutely. Of course, he doesn't die. I don't think he even dismounts from his motorcycle. I think he just puts him back right on the road. And never you mind, don't bother sending, I think this was Daw Books, don't bother sending Craig Sargent a letter asking him hypothetically what he thinks happens to a human body if it's caught up in 400-mile-an-hour winds. Don't even bother to do that. This is fantasy. Stone survives the tornado, which is exactly the phrase I used the morning after several of my honeymoons to death. He survives the tornado and goes about his adventures, and sooner or later, we reach the climax of the book when Stone finds himself captured by the dwarf, strapped to an operating table, with the dwarf getting ready to mutilate him. He's straining against his straps, but there's nothing he can do. There's no help coming. Excalibur is across the room, also strapped to a table, and the dwarf wants to cut limbs off the pit bull and surgically attach them to Stone. Wants to cut Stone's arms and legs off and attach Excalibur's arms and legs to Stone. His laboratory is full of surgery victims who naturally have the attached limbs rotting and suppurating. They're not workable. This guy doesn't have the equipment to attach nerves or anything like that. It's just butchery. And Stone is thrashing on the table, but there's nothing he can do. He just, as he says, wishes that he could have gone out fighting. He doesn't mention libido at that moment, but I think it's fairly safe to say it's probably visible if anybody would have the bad grace to film one of these things. When, at the very last minute, he is saved by a biker gang who also have magical bikes. This was also a time of biker gangs when they were all over the popular media. They also have magical bikes that never run out of gas, and somehow they're always able to repair these things. Stone is right on the verge of finding his sister, finally, but something else is right on the verge of happening. The dwarf gets away to a control panel, a long, hidden, but somehow still functioning control panel. What is generating the electricity? What is stopping the circuits when they burn out? What is replacing them? We don't know. We're not supposed to know. You're not supposed to think very much about these things. They are absolute hysterical purple prose garbage. The dwarf rushes to these control panels and unleashes a nuclear arsenal. Thousands of nuclear weapons. And Uh, one, I don't know about. I don't know about spoiling, a 50-year-old action adventure novel that's not worth your time to read. But one of the things that you don't get from an ebook that you do get in the print copy of this book is that there is an illustration, a little computer-generated illustration at the top of every chapter that shows a nuclear silo opening and then a missile coming out and a blast of exhaust and then the missile arcing. And if you feel like it with the paperback, you can actually make it a flip book and just accelerate the process of those images. And they don't leave any doubt. In fact, I wonder if the ebook must have them, so that you'll at least know what I mean. You'll at least know what I'm talking about. Let's see here. Yeah, this will certainly be able to. Okay, here's the beginning of chapter 4. Can you make that out? It's just a little computer-generated image, only that rocket goes up and up and up as you page on. So there isn't much doubt, of course, because once those doors open, which is, I think, the second image, on the image starting chapter 2, once those doors open, that's it. That's the end of the story right there. The Last Ranger has an end to his adventures, and so do all the other creatures here have ends to their adventures. And at the end of the book, we are told that there is just glowing powdered dust where the third planet from the sun used to be. That, of course, would not happen, right? Of course would not happen. The planet is not in any danger from the nuclear arsenal that humans have created. All life on Earth and all living biospheres, the atmosphere, maybe even the electromagnetic field, is in danger from a relatively simultaneous detonation of those arsenals. But the planet itself is not. But again, as with pit bulls, as with biker gangs, as with drug cartels, so too with this. Ollie's point that these things are often they're often tapping into zeitgeist, satanic panic overreactions of the time. And thermonuclear war was very much one of those. I would say that it probably topped the list. In a way that people born in the 21st century will simply not be able to feel. It was with us every minute of every day. The specter of thermonuclear war, the specter of thermonuclear annihilation. Oddly enough, ironically enough, we are much closer to that kind of a thing happening now than we were then. Then we had two enormous state apparatuses that were, despite what you might think, largely predisposed not to have that happen. Now we have functional weapons-grade nuclear arsenals on the open market. We have former president of the United States wanted to nuke hurricanes, as if that would not cause a retaliation from every planet on Earth. And we also have, of course, India and Pakistan. We've had nukes pointed at each other with 100 hair-raising near misses, only one or two of which you know about. That's been happening for decades. That's an incredible winning streak that can't go on forever. Whereas when these books were written, no, it was the danger that we thought, the terror that stalked our nightmares, the nightmare at when the whole world quiets down and all you have is your worries, was that you would hear a nuclear siren going off, and you know that you have 5 minutes. You have no time to do anything except, kiss your tuchus goodbye. You don't have any time to get to a fallout shelter, even if you knew where one was. So that was a prevalent societal fear, and these books, especially this last book, very much tap into that. Was this good? No. No. I am freed from the doubts and the worries, the ambiguities that I felt with Contain. I'm freed from that. Oh, here. Oh, some post-apocalyptic fetus yoga. Oh! Oh! We were on our walk earlier today and we met a new dog. Big white dog, white fur, pink nose, pink ridges to his lips. He was adorable. Just some big white pit bull. And they were staring at each other, and his comments, so to speak, his posture was saying, well, you seem awful tense, but I want to be your friend. I want to be everybody's friend. And I was trying to communicate that to my little girl. I was trying to say, oh, come on, Frida, if I can see this, you can see this. But when he got a little closer, since he was new, if he wasn't new, she wouldn't have done it. But since he was new, she decided to scream at him a bit. First a deep, throaty growl, and then... and he cowered behind his owners. I was saying, oh, baby, don't scare him. You're going to end up being friends. But my little Excalibur. See, my little Excalibur. You would not want a miniature schnauzer in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, mainly because you could not keep them in the style to which they are accustomed. She would be much, much more use. No partiality involved here. She would be much, much more use than Excalibur. Even though he's a boo-boo-boo, even though he's a baby. That's, of course, not a pit bull on the cover, but what are you going to do? I'm sure the artist wasn't paid much. But she could catch Preventer. She could catch irradiated mice, whereas pit bull's not going to catch you anything, except grief from drug lords or whatever. But anyway, the ambiguity that I felt about the last trash pickup that I commented on was not present here. It's never present when I reread the Last Ranger series. I have reread these things so many times. I think my favorite volume is probably The Cutthroat Cannibals, but it could be Village of the Damned. but Is This the End is definitely the funniest of the books, because while you are reading a book called Is This the End, and while the hero and his dog are struggling mightily against the forces of evil, at the beginning of every chapter you're getting those pictograms that tell you a completely different story. I don't know if any other stereotypical men's adventure series ends this way. The Deathland series by Axler doesn't have an actual ending, does it? And nor does the Edge series, right? They don't, or the Deathstalker series, these things don't have an ending. They don't have a final book. They're designed to just keep going, aren't they? There is no Last Ranger 11. Let's just put it that way. But I have my trash instincts completely re-wetted. I am now completely on the same page as trash. So you'd think that would mean that I would leave well enough alone, but I want to read another one of those indie books. And see, is it trash or not? Now, if it's not trash, I'm going to read another one of those indie books tonight, because I'm always sending them to my Kindle, so they're piling up. I've at least 100. In the short time that I've had these things, it's a really good way to amass a library of indie titles. I want to read another one of those tonight, but I'm not going to do a trash pickup on that if it's the same thing as Contain. If it's just a good indie book, then it's not fair to do that for Garbagas, because it's not trash. Either knowing trash or unknowing trash. If it's simply good, well, writing a good, solid, competent novel, one that kept me reading, is beyond the ability of most people who are starting out. It takes a bit of talent to do that. Not in this case a lot of talent, but still. If I encounter that tonight, I will make sure to also read trash. I have plenty of stuff where I have no doubts whatsoever about what it is. But that's my report for today. Is this the end? But I'll be back. Thank you.